'Tis the most wonderful time of the year. The NBA trade season is finally here. Everyone loves the NBA trade season. I think it is safe to say that it is the most popular time of the year for NBA fans. Many dark horse contenders are going to be trying to get that one last piece to establish themselves as legit contenders. Many legit contenders are going to try to get that one piece to put them over the edge. And many teams will also be selling to build for the future. So without further ado, here are the top 5 names that could be on the move this trade season. At number 5 is Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond only played 25 games for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then the Cavaliers decided to sit him until he is either traded or bought out. In his 25 games, however, Drummond did manage to average a solid 17.5 points and 13.5 rebounds, as well as 1.6 steals and 1.2 blocks. Although Drummond is not the best center in the league, he is going to be a good player for a team that is trying to contend and needs one more piece. Many sources say it is extremely likely that Andre Drummond will be bought out, and then he will likely sign with either the Lakers or the Nets. However, nothing has been confirmed yet. Andre Drummond would make a great fit on either of these teams. He'd either be joining LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers, who desperately need an upgrade over Marc Gasol, or he'd be joining the already stacked Brooklyn Nets, who along with James Harden, who they acquired earlier in the season, have just signed Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond's former teammate on the Detroit Pistons. Andre Drummond would make a great defensive anchor, and is also arguably the greatest rebounder of all time. So it would not be unreasonable to assume that if Drummond has truly narrowed it down to the Lakers and Nets, that team is going to win the NBA championship. However, again, nothing has been set in stone, so it is possible that Drummond does not end up going to either of those teams. However, it seems more likely than not that he does. At number 4 is Kristaps Porzingis. The Dallas Mavericks were expecting to make a big step up this season after getting the 7th seed last year. However, they currently hold the 8th seed at 18-16, just half a game up on the Golden State Warriors and 1 game up on the Memphis Grizzlies, meaning that they are 1 game away from being in 10th place despite having Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. And because of that, the Dallas Mavericks have hinted that they might be willing to trade Kristaps Porzingis, with several teams in the mix. Kristaps Porzingis has been averaging 20.2 points on 46.9% shooting and 34.9% shooting from deep, and has also been pulling in 8.4 rebounds and getting 1.6 blocks per game. So he will clearly be a serviceable player on any team he goes to. It just seems like he does not quite work too well on the Dallas Mavericks. 3 teams in particular have been named, the first one being the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics have had chance after chance after chance to go get a big man and have just not done it for several years now. With Tatum and Brown at the 2 and the 3, and they have now moved Tice to the 4 with Thompson at the 5, they could really use an upgrade at the center, as they have not had a starting center over the height of 6'9" for a very long time. No one understands why the Boston Celtics were so hesitant to get a big man for this long, but it seems like Kristaps Porzingis could be the one that they finally go after. However, they are going to have a lot of competition, as Kristaps Porzingis has a lot of trade value. Another team that has been mentioned is the Washington Wizards. Despite an extremely slow start, the Washington Wizards have really picked up their pace in the NBA and are currently just a few games out of the playoffs, as they have won 7 of their last 10 games. With Bradley Beal having his best season yet, and Russell Westbrook looking like he's finally coming back into form, it is possible that the Wizards may go all in this season, as their starting center Thomas Bryant has torn his ACL and will not be playing the rest of the season. If Kristaps were to join the Washington Wizards, the Wizards would then have a big 3 with Westbrook and Beal, as well as Kristaps Porzingis, and if Porzingis does end up working out for them, could be legit contenders in the Eastern Conference against the Nets, Bucks, and Sixers. The third team that Kristaps Porzingis could be traded to is the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls have been trying to get help for Zach LaVine for years, to no avail. Kobe White is a solid player, Lowry is a solid player, and Wendell Carter Jr. is a solid player, but none of them are that established second option that they've been looking for. Kristaps Porzingis could be just that. The Chicago Bulls have both Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. to trade, as well as their first round picks, obviously. However, if they were to trade both of those or even just one of those, then Kristaps Porzingis could thrive in Chicago, as he is working with basically a slightly less skilled, however more athletic Luka Doncic. If Zach LaVine's athleticism can get Kristaps Porzingis more open threes because of the way he attacks the paint, Porzingis' game could shine. As well, Kristaps Porzingis would be the defensive anchor that the Bulls have been missing, as Wendell Carter Jr., much like Daniel Tice, is a very good player, however is only 6'9", very undersized for a center, especially a starting center. So if Kristaps Porzingis were to go to any of these teams, he would be a huge help, and he would make two of them, the Celtics and Wizards, possibly legit contenders while making the Bulls real playoff threats for the next few years. At number 3, we have Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry has actually been playing impressively well this season, averaging 18 points on 45.7% shooting and 40.3% shooting from deep, but the Toronto Raptors as a whole have not, as they are currently 17-19 in the Eastern Conference despite being a powerhouse last year and winning a championship the year prior. So it seems like the Toronto Raptors want to shake things up, and the Philadelphia 76ers have been aggressively pursuing Kyle Lowry. Lowry is 34, but he is still a very productive player, and the Philadelphia 76ers are looking for that point guard to really bolster their roster. Currently, they start Ben Simmons at point guard, but it is well known that Ben Simmons should not really be playing point guard if the Philadelphia 76ers want to be the real contenders, as Ben Simmons is more of a point forward player who should be playing the 3 or 4, and having a real point guard playing alongside Ben Simmons, especially since he is not able to shoot. So, sending Kyle Lowry to the Philadelphia 76ers could be mutually beneficial. The 76ers could get an impressive player back, such as Tobias Harris, Seth Curry, or possibly even just some picks if the Toronto Raptors want to begin looking towards the future, which could be the answer for them, as it does not seem like they have that superstar to look for in the near future. Siakam is a great player, but it does not seem like he can be the #1 option on a championship team. Kyle Lowry himself seems fully convinced that he's getting traded, as reports have come out that he's been telling everybody that he's getting traded. And the 76ers are the clear frontrunners, however, the Miami Heat have seemed to show minimal interest in him, so they could be making a bid, but it does not appear that there are any other teams, aside from those two, that have been names for a possible Kyle Lowry trade. Coming in at number 2 is Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo is the 2017-2018 most improved player, but has not been the same since the injury he sustained in the 2018-2019 season, and has not been an all-star since that year. He has not been great this year, but has been a serviceable player, averaging 20 points on 39.9% shooting and 33.1% shooting from deep. However, since arriving in Houston, has been averaging 19.9 points per game on 38.7% shooting and 31.3% shooting from deep. However, he can still hang his hat on the defensive end of the floor, as he's still one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, so it is not unlikely that they will find a trade partner for him. The Houston Rockets very clearly want to move on from Victor Oladipo, as it seems like they want to get younger, since they are one of the worst teams in the league, holding a 13-game losing streak and rapidly gaining on the Pistons and Timberwolves for the #1 best lottery odds. The Houston Rockets also recently called up Kevin Porter Jr., the shooting guard they traded for with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who is one of the best players that the G League has ever seen, making the other players look like they were a bunch of freshman college kids. So it is very clear that they already have the replacement for Victor Oladipo and are going to look to get another young asset along with him. Teams that might trade for Victor Oladipo include the New York Knicks, the Miami Heat, and the Golden State Warriors. The three of those teams could all use a solid shooting guard, especially the Golden State Warriors. Kelly Oubre Jr. has not been who they hoped they'd be, and Andrew Wiggins can play the small forward. And to get one of the best perimeter defenders that could match Klay Thompson's defense as he currently sits could help the Golden State Warriors elevate into that dark horse championship contender level. Oladipo could also be very useful as a member of the Miami Heat. As one of the best perimeter defenders, he'd be joining Jimmy Butler and would make a nearly unstoppable force on defense for the perimeter. Victor Oladipo would be joining other guards such as Tyler Herro, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, and Goran Dragic, but I think Eric Spoelstra would be able to make that work, and Victor Oladipo would be thriving in Miami. And finally, the New York Knicks. The Knicks came out of nowhere and surprised everyone by having one of the better records in the Eastern Conference. They are currently 19-18 and holding the 5th spot. Julius Randle has been leading the charge as he has gotten his first All-Star appearance, and the New York Knicks seem like they want to really elevate that, as with a 5 seed, it seems like they could also be dark horse contenders for the Eastern Conference, being one piece away from possibly stealing a series from the Bucks, Celtics, Nets, or Sixers. And finally, at number 1, Victor Oladipo's teammate, John Wall. Wall has been having a surprisingly good season with the Houston Rockets, averaging 21 points on 42.4% shooting and 34% shooting from deep. John Wall is currently saving his career after his Achilles injury that had him sitting the 2019-2020 season. John Wall has not garnered as much interest as Victor Oladipo because of his massive contract, but is the better player and will be a very good player wherever he goes. The top two teams currently are the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Miami Heat have vested the most interest out of anyone in him and would like to get a point guard to go along with Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler as well as Bam Adebayo. There have not been many reports from the 76ers, but with their vested interest in Lowry, who is on a similarly expensive contract, it would not be crazy to assume that the 76ers may have their hat in the ring for John Wall. And the two of them could both massively use a point guard of that caliber, one of them who is the best floor generals that the game has ever seen, and is one of the best at pick and rolls, which both Embiid and Adebayo could take a major advantage of.